Are we live?
Yes, we are.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the CG Cookie live stream. And as always, as I'm finishing up the marketing post here, if you want to put where you're watching from, let me switch my questions on here. And Joe will do shout outs as to where you're watching from.
Let's see. Oh, wow, we have a ton already. Kathy Brown says, oh, hey, hello from Texas. John says, hello, I'm from Nigeria. Iona says, hello from Spain. Divine says, hello from Poland. Laura says, good evening from Spain. Tajil says, guess who's back? Back again. Guess who's back? Tell a friend. Hi from Belgium. Very excited for this stream. Have been struggling with hair for a long time. Have a nice stream, everybody. Thank you, Jill. Constantine says hello from Russia, and his icon is Kermit the Frog. So that's awesome. And then, oh, we're getting a bunch in again. Renato from Italy. Eva says hello from Slovakia, as always. How are you today? How are you doing, Tim?
Wonderful.
You look like you're broadcasting from Cloud9 or the heavens.
I am. I'm actually not on this planet's atmosphere anymore.
He has ascended to the next plane, everybody.
Lifelong mission.
Cindy Kruger says, hi from, is it Tempe? Tempe, Arizona? I should probably know this. Henry from NYC. Hello, Henry. Fabian says hello from the Netherlands. Sean Kelly from the UK. Hello, Sean Kelly. Welcome back. I just saw I am not. Where'd you go? Hey from Sweden. Bob Tinsley says hello from Georgia. Kate QVQ says hello. Poland here. And Andrea from Denmark. And Andrea, you haven't given me something to say in Danish this week, so I don't have anything to say about that. Laura says good evening from Spain. And I think, and Manumu Art from Slovakia as well.
Well, hello, everyone.
Oh, Horatio says hi from Mexico. Nice haircut, guys. Thank you very much.
Hello. All right, so we're ready to get started here?
Yes.
Oh man, I'm like, it's so hot in here.
It looks very steamy.
Yeah, I'm also on a bathhouse, like you said. I'm in the steam room. I thought I would present from the steam room today. Okay. Hi, everyone. Welcome to this 2D concept cookie, or 2D digital art. I keep saying concept cookie, form of habit. CG Cookie live stream. We do these every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Central Time, and that's -5 GMT if you're watching outside of the States. We usually post the topic about an hour or two beforehand. Today we were pretty good. We were about 4 hours before. And we are going to be tackling the topic of hair. And this is one that I've been kind of focused on this past weekend. So I thought I'd share with you guys what I've learned, or some things that I've noticed that I do hair, or when I do hair, things that I notice that are wrong, or things that I tend to autopilot to. And the hair that I'm creating today isn't hyper realism. It's more of a stylized look. And I know I don't like using the word stylized, but I really do think that this is, since it's not realism, but it's not cartoony in any way. It does have a certain look to it. And I want to share with you guys how I'm going to create that look. As you guys might have known, the contest that we were holding ended, I think it was last week, or was it 2 weeks ago? Oh, my time frame's all messed up. But we are starting another contest next week, next Thursday, actually. And it's going to be our Halloween one because it's October 1st. And in the States, Halloween is kind of a big deal. So we're going to have fun with the entire month. Joe and I are going to be dressing up every week, and we're going to have a spooktacular time. But the other thing I wanted to mention is next week's live stream will be our first critique live stream. This has been something that you guys have been asking for a while now. It's probably the most requested tutorial or live stream. and we decided we're finally going to do it. So after this live stream is over, Joe's going to create a community post on cgcookie.community or community.cgcookie. I should probably know
Community.
this. It's community.
It's community.cgcookie.com.
One of those things that's hard for me to remember. I'm like, I always know it's one of them. It's community.cgcookie.com, and there'll be like a big, bold, in all caps most likely, saying post your artwork here if you want to get some like live feedback next week. And it'll be Joe and myself critiquing. I am so hot right now. I got to take this thing off. I'm going to be like sweating throughout this entire live stream. Oh, much better. Okay. All right, so why don't we go ahead and get started? And as always, if you have any questions, even if they don't pertain to what I'm working on today, feel free to ask them in the comment section, and Joe will be our little moderator today asking the questions. All right. Holy hell, I'm sweating. Hopefully this doesn't become a problem during the whole stream.
We already have a new question. It's Olariel says, did your new hairstyle inspire today's topic?
No. My roommates pranked me. I woke up like this. No, in all seriousness,
not true.
For my Halloween costume, we're all going all out. All 5 of us are. So I don't want to reveal what it is, but pretty much, actually, I don't even want to say anything more than that, besides the fact that I had to cut my hair and it's going to get even shorter. So this is something that is not for style. I don't think I look good like this, but it's too hot for me to wear a hat right now. All right. Go ahead and share my screen. All right, so we're gonna be working on the female on the left. I scalped her just now, and I used to have a block of hair kind of blocked in, but I was like, you know what, if I'm gonna show you the entire process of hair, I'm gonna do it from the very start. And to do that, I usually start with, let me zoom in here, something that looks more along the lines of, I don't know how well you can see it, but it's down here. This is typically what my initial sketch would start off as, and it literally is just like blocking in a solid foundation. I'm not focusing at all on details. I'm not worrying about little strands of hair by any means. And even as I go through, I don't really worry about the individual strands. I mean, maybe I guess you could say some of it's there, but in my opinion, that's still shaping it out. And then I'm still shaping it out, and it isn't really until the final look that I'm going for, where I do add some individual strands, but for the most part, I'm creating a look where it's still blocked out in different shapes. I'm not trying to create a hyper-realistic look here, but definitely pulling from realism influence. And the way that hair looks realistically is usually it's blocked out in different chunks, and those shapes have a shine to it. And that's why it looks like there's different chunks of hair rather than it looking like individual strands. Okay, so on Tracy, I'm going to actually move Christina closer just so we can get kind of a comparison throughout. Maybe I'll move. Like great.
Digital says, Tim, you should paint your hair red and let it grow it at the back into a ponytail.
I was thinking of doing just so before I completely, well, I was giving it away. I almost gave it away. But I was thinking, yeah, I would dye it red for a couple days and do like a cross play of my character red. Okay. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to give a slight outline to what I want the final hair to look like. And when I'm doing this, I'm remembering that all hair, oh, you know what? Before I even start it, I'm working with the chalk brush, and that's the only brush I'll be working with today. And I'm working at a 300 resolution, and I'm starting on a gray background because it helps show the true hue of the colors that I'm working with. There were some technical things that I was asked in a question on CG Cookie, and for every live stream, they just said if I could give a quick shout out on things I'm working on or what I'm working with. All right, so when I'm doing the hair, I'm blocking it out, and I'm imagining it's coming out of the scalp, and it's going to be forming around because gravity is pushing the hair down. Now for females, and sometimes for males, there's usually some kind of a hair product in it that helps it create more of a volume to it, so it stays a little more off the head, where if it's wet, it'd be like really close to the surface of the head. Or if you have really straight thin hair, it'd be very close to the head itself. But for her, I'm going to have it be a little more voluptuous. And she is more of like a lady of the night. So I definitely need her to appear where it's more glamorous, but there's still a sense of like, I don't want to say, hey, a grogginess, but like unkempt. So the hair should look a little dirty, almost a little oily. So I'm going to show you how I'm going to get that across too. Because when you're doing hair, it shouldn't all just be the same for every character you do. You should really think about who the character is and how they would treat their hair and what fashion would they style it in, how long would it be. Does it make sense for every character to have long hair? No. It would probably make sense if their personality kind of catered to it. And that's why I'm going to have more of a long hair on this character here. And I'm not going to be doing a heavy outline right on the edge of the forehead. I'm going to let it kind of be more of a natural flow into the hair, because if you look at your hair, if you like pull it up, there's kind of a area, it's like a gray area between when you can still see the scalp through the actual hair, but the hair is creating sort of this gradient from skin to hair color. So that's like in this section right here. So I'm going to leave that toward when I'm actually blocking in the color. So I'm not going to like draw a line here as of right now. So when I'm thinking about the different shapes, I'm still thinking of it in almost triangles that are curved and then they come to a point. And the reason for that is the hair itself, or hair typically will have different lengths to it. You'll rarely see hair that's like perfectly cut in the same length all the way down, just because of the way that it's styled and cut. And then I had to do a lot of research back when I was in high school on what layering of hair meant. I was one of those guys that didn't really know what that meant. And after looking into it, I understood that there's different sections of the hair that you cut at different lengths. So I have to try to represent that when I'm drawing my female characters, just to get a higher sense of how it actually probably would be. And don't forget to flip your canvas so you can see what it looks like on either side. Okay, and as soon as I get kind of a good block and I told Joe, then I could start answering the hard questions.
This one actually pertains to what you're doing right now. Y Diskin says, how will you draw the point in which the hair and skin connect, either forehead, facial hair, or the back of the neck?
I'm assuming she shaves her facial hair, but in terms of where the forehead meets the hairline, I'm going to show that when I block it out. And you know what? Maybe I could do that right now. So I'm going to make a new layer below this layer so I can draw underneath of it, but it's going to be above the skin layer that we created. So Tracy has a dark brown type of hair, and she has some highlighting going on, but we'll get to that. Actually, you know what? First, I'm going to make a new layer underneath the skin. So I can have this brown color butt up right against the skin itself without there being like pockets of the background sticking through. So I'm going to first do that. And then I'm going to go back to that layer above the skin layer. So now I can start drawing on top of it. And it's okay that you can see how some of that gray is catching through on the background here, or on the final product we have going on. And that's okay. I'm going to clean it up later. I'm not focusing on the details yet. Because remember, it's a lot easier to shape hair out first and then think about individual strands near the end. So like right now, the strands down here look way too stringy. So I got to bring in some of that volume down. Your hair length is about here. I gotta be a little careful with not making too broad of strokes, because I know if I'm gonna clean it up, I don't want too much cleanup work if it's unnecessary. And I like to leave some pockets of either the skin or the background showing through to give the impression that the hair is not perfectly straight. There's some wave to it. So that's what this section going on right here is all about. All right, so now as we get to the scalp, kind of like what that question was asking, I'm going to push this chalk brush really close to it, but you can see how I'm layering it in. So it's not like one big brush stroke. I'm trying to create more of a natural flow. And I should have mentioned this earlier, but whenever you're doing hair, it seems to be a lot easier if you do your brush strokes in the direction of the hair itself. I guess that's true for a lot of even doing anatomy and facial features, is having the brush go in the direction of the forms that are underneath of it. Okay, let me see what that looks like. All right, I'm starting to dig that. I'm gonna make another new layer. Then from here, I'm just gonna give a very vague impression of where the highlights would be. Mind you, I'm not using white. If anything, I know you guys can't see my color picker, but it's very much still in the almost black range. It's like 70% value here. And I'm laying it on near the top, and it almost creates this shine circle here. So wherever this line is where the shine would be. Because if you can imagine, the hair would be darkest. Let me see if I can grab another color that would stand out. It should be kind of darkest right here, and not on the other side of the highlight. Now, obviously, it depends on the way that the hair is pulled and the shaping of it, but it's just a general rule of thumb where you can have a highlight go, or the hair itself be shaded in a way that's shadow, and then like mid-tone, then highlight, and then back to mid-tone and shadow. And then from there, you can just think of it curving and moving, and then wherever the curve points are would be the highlight point, and then the in-betweens would be next to the highlight, and then the shadow would be everywhere else. And once you do hair enough times, it almost becomes second nature, where you're not even thinking about it while you're doing it. It just becomes like oh yeah, no, this is where the highlight would go here, blah, blah, blah. And I'll lay out my color palette on the side here too.
It's a lot like rendering out ribbons, right?
Yeah, same thing.
All right, this one's got a +7.
Let's hear it.
From Kathy Brown. It says, I have a character with short, messy, kind of curly black hair, but my attempts either don't look right or are a squiggly mess. And for some reason, I have no idea how to reference hair pictures, so all my hair looks flat, stiff, and bad. What do I do?
Let me pull up really quick, because I did a live stream a few months ago on doing curly hair, and it was one of the few times I've really enjoyed drawing curly hair. And I think you can have more fun with it. So let me see if I can find the image really quick. Here it is. All right, I'm going to pull it into the stream here. Put it above that layer. Oop. Okay, so this kind of is, I'm hoping what you're talking about, where this is curly black hair and it's shorter. And if they don't like or are a squiggly mess, it could be because you're focused too much on the fact that it has curly strands on it. And it's so much easier to clump them together and use reference. Just like Google curly hair, and if you're doing a female, then do female, or male, male. And from there, look at how the hair clumps together. And there's different shapes. If I even point out on here, you can see how there's like different ribbons of shaping going on. And the thing that I think throws people off the most, which is something you should practice, is have the curls going toward the camera. I think too often we're so obsessed with curls going on the side so that you can be like, oh, that is curly hair. But if you look at how it really works in real life, there's a lot of curls that go toward the camera. And you have to throw those in too to make it feel more realistic. So I'm hoping this answers your question, but I have a feeling it could be you don't have any curls going toward the camera, and try doing that. Because sometimes it can look really flat when you're pushing all the curls to be on the side. Because then it does look kind of strange. So that would be my advice with doing shorter curly hair. And it's really fun. If you haven't done curly hair, I recommend everyone at least trying it once. What other questions we got?
Kate QVQ asks, what is the weirdest hairstyles you guys have ever seen?
I don't know. I've seen pretty weird. I like to watch a a lot of fashion week stuff, and those have really abstract hair. But I guess the strangest I've seen in person recently, I was at a food court, and this girl, she had this like gorgeous hair. It was super big, but it went down to like her waist, but it had to be mostly fake. I don't know if it was fake or not. Her hair was so curly and thick that it literally covered like her entire back. It looked like a big shag, almost carpet. But I thought it was the coolest thing because then she, on the front, was wearing like really modern clothing, and she really looked like she just walked out of like a magazine spread of a new, like, I don't want to say, maybe like PacSun or something along those lines. If you guys even
say if it's like, if we're talking like drawn, I would say like Kumamaro from Yu Yu Hakusho, that hairstyle where they've got the giant tube hair in the front. You know what I'm talking about? Like an anime where they have like this weird, it's like a cylinder from hair. It's weird. I don't understand that. As far as like real life goes, though, weirdest. I'd say anything that has to do with like stuff in the hair. Like, what if it's like a giant mohawk and it's got like stuff hanging out of the mohawk? You know?
Oh yeah, like feathers and flowers.
I think that's pretty weird.
I'm gonna make this look as if it's looping over here. So to do that, I'm gonna add some more contrast. And if you guys follow my streams, I like using the word contrast because it creates such a easy effect, or such a great effect, and it can be done really easily. So here, all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna lay in a darker brown underneath here, and it'll instantly give the impression when I lay this light brown over that the light brown is closer to the viewer in perspective, and the darker brown is further back. So it gives the impression that the hair is pulled in front of, it has like a hanging effect going on here. So I'm going to use this technique in a few different places. And actually, maybe I'll do it right now while I'm talking about it to give you guys a better example of how you can push hair forward and back based on the contrast that you're adding.
Okay, so Sydney Kruger asks, would you be able to share any tips on painting beards? And the reason why I'm picking this question for you, Tim, is because I kind of want to see you put a beard on Tracy.
Sure, why not? Okay, so beards, and you know what? I just did one the other day, so this will be kind of a reminder here. Okay, so I'm going to use more of this blue, this darker blue color first. So before I even lay the beard on, it's gonna be so weird doing this on a female. I like to give this bit of an after shave look. This might be a little heavier, but if you ever read James Gurney's Color and Light book, he talks about how the face has different color regions, and this is one of them where the blue fills in the lower portion, the lower third, I should say, of the face. So I'm going to first do that, and then from here, before I even add any hair still, I'm going to grab a darker skin color and lay on sort of a light stubble. Because when you're thinking about doing stuff like this, always think of it in doing it in layers, so it becomes a little easier. And you can build it up so that when you add the actual hair of the beard, it's not being laid on this like really light skinned area. And the light skin might read way too strong underneath. Oh my God, this looks so strange.
This is awesome.
And also remember that beards typically go lower than the neckline itself, unless if they're like super clean shaven and they have a cut line. Usually the beards can go even lower to like half the neck. You can bring it down pretty far. Then from here, I'd make a new layer. And now I would go with the beard. Now, typically I would look at the actual hair that is on the character. And if he has brown hair, there's a good chance that the beard will be just a tad darker. Now, mind you, it varies. Sometimes you see people with darker hair and they have light beards. So it definitely varies. It's all based on, genetics. But for the most part, I like to keep it dark first. And if you want to add some lighter tones on top, you can.
This is so silly.
It almost looks like a bearded lady at a carnival.
Right? Or someone like wearing makeup. Like someone who's like a performer.
Mm-hmm. Like the bearded lady, that's an actual part of the freak show, it's called. And from here, I might dabble on a few highlighted areas, but for the most part, a beard is supposed to be pretty rough and scrabbly. So I'm not worried too much about how perfect the brushstroke lines are. And then typically beards might overhang the lip a bit as well. So you can push this, even this could be further in. So something like that. And if I really, really wanted her to have a beard, I'd probably clean this up and do a little more work on the lining of the beard, but that's typically the steps I would take to give a character a beard.
That was awesome.
It looks like she just shaved.
Right.
Here's her beard, and we're going to shave it for the day.
That was awesome. Kudos to you for doing that. That was very impressive.
I just must be in a really good mood today. Yeah, let me draw a beard on my character.
Jill says, I know Tracy doesn't have shaved off parts, but can you show how approach very short hair or stubble? And I'm guessing that's how you'd go about it, right? You would.
Yes. If you wanted to crop her hair off, actually, I'll do it really quick just to give you guys a good look at, like, don't be afraid of just drawing over it, because if you really don't want your character to have long hair and you decide like halfway through, like I don't really want her to have long hair anymore, then cut it. There's no reason that you can't just paint over. You can see what they look like with a different hairstyle. And see how quick that was? Like, even though it's pretty undone, then from here, I mean, obviously I would just erase the hair underneath, but actually she doesn't look too bad with short hair, but that's the way I would approach it.
I think Jill means like Charlize Theron in Mad Max, short.
Oh, then I just remove all the hair. But the short stubble is pretty much just like this when you're layering it on the head and then giving it some kind of a shine. Because even when, well, it depends on how long the hair is, but let me actually, I have a good reference for this. Say hello to Red. And when I do the short part of Red's hair, it still gives an impression that hair grows out of that area. So if it was just pure skin, I mean, unless if she's really cutting it super short, like shaving it, it might still look almost like a mannequin-esque, and you don't want that. You want it to still read as a person that's having their hair grown in, they just shave it off. So I usually keep it pretty, or a color still, a color impression left on it. But the thing that I was talking about was a little shine on the head itself. So right here. So just giving some kind of the impression that the skin itself is typically more reflective than really short hair. I mean, obviously that depends on how oily the hair or how oily the skin is. But typically just having just a little impression of a shine on that area can give quite an impression that, okay, this is skin, and that was hair that's been shaved down to the scalp.
I guess the other thing is, like, if your character has something like that, like, are they shaving every day?
Yeah.
Because hair grows back fast, especially on females. Because I believe it's because of the estrogen. Don't quote me on that. But their hair grows back pretty fast. So, like, I imagine Red probably has to take clippers to that hair to keep it that low all the time, you know?
I always imagine she carried, what are those old
Shears?
style? The ones that you see in like Sweeney Todd. I can't remember. It's like almost like a razor blade attached to a handle. I don't know. Someone I bet will say it in the comments.
Isn't it just a blade, like a razor blade?
not sure.
It's currently called, according to houseofbeauty.com, it's the straight razor.
Straight razor. There we go. Sounds right. All right, let's see. Where am I at here? All right, so I'm going to merge all those layers down into one so you can see what it looks like. I'm going to make a copy of it, and I'm going to continue working on it. Or you know what? Let me do that layer down. Then maybe on the community post, I'll give a little step-by-step reference guide if you want it.
A lot of people keep asking about curly hair.
For curly hair?
But yeah, it says, how do you draw curly hair? Everyone seems to enjoy drawing wavy, straight, or messy hair, but I haven't seen many tutorials on drawing coloring curly hair. I mean, you kind of already went over that.
Live stream over the curly hair one that we did. Because I think that was a pretty good one on describing curly hair. All right, so from here now, I'm going to start adding some irregularities to the line movement itself. So like this straight piece of hair that's going down here, I'm going to have some of it curling in. And since it's against that contrast of the darker brown in the back, it still reads as if it's in front of that hair. So I can almost work primarily with this lighter brown to give the impression that this hair is in the front. But the beauty of this is it still reads as the same hair. It's just this hair is more in the lit area than the area that's getting covered almost entirely in the darker brown.
This isn't a question on the chat. This is a question from me. What do you think about hair going into the mouth? Like if it's so long that it just like hooks onto like the mouth?
What the heck are you talking about?
So like you see how her strand like lips over her head and then goes all the way to where her, like if you were to extend that into the face and overlay it like slightly next to the mouth.
Oh, like that?
Like that's a bit, it'd have to be up high, right?
What is this called? What's it called when like you leave a line really close to the edge and then like a tangent? Is that it?
Yeah.
I think it's called a tangent. So I would avoid that completely. So if I really wanted that hair to be that length, I would either push it behind the head, or I would never have it come in front of the face like that, because that does read as, well, is she eating her hair?
She's very hungry.
Or I'd make it shorter and then maybe push it up more. But I think usually I would push it out like that. Actually, I kind of like that. Now from here, oops, sorry, you can go.
I was going to say, I'm going to run to the bathroom really fast, but I wanted to leave with a question.
All right.
It says, how would you go about rendering hair and other media like traditional pencil or painting?
Good question. Okay, so let me pull up that image really quick.
I'll be right back.
All right. Let's see if I did one recently. I did? Okay, perfect. So isn't that kind of weird that I have to remind myself if I did or not? Okay, anyways. So when I do hair traditionally, I usually will do, and mind you that these harsh brush strokes here aren't done until the very end. So I keep it very light, and I very, very heavily rely on shaping it. And I think that's part of the beauty of working with pencils, is that I don't have to work with hue and saturations and worrying about if the colors work well together, if there's harmony between them. I can literally just let the lines kind of speak for themselves, and there's some strength to that, because then I'm very much in control of where the values are, and by almost isolating them, it creates a sense of flow without it even being very dark. So on this picture of Lana that I drew, it was one where she has very dark hair, but in this impression, I didn't have to layer in my pencil really heavy to give the impression that this is dark hair. I can almost leave it up to interpretation from the viewer. So typically when I work traditionally, I almost let the values be more minimal, and I leave it to be more impressionistic in that sense. All right, I'm going to zoom in just a bit here. Oop. Move it over. Okay, so now I'm at the point where I'm gonna also use my eraser tool, which is also the eraser tool. And we're gonna be doing some cutting in and slimming down of some of the excess hair that we got going on here. So like in the back, I'll be like, okay, this looks a little messy. Let me go ahead, clean it up first. Get maybe a darker brush stroke in there. Then switch to my eraser tool and erase the area that seems to be too heavy. Or something that I've been doing a little more recently is I'll use my selection tool, and this is the marquee tool. I'll select a chunk of hair. Oop, that was a bit too much. And then switch to my eraser tool and then just erase that section that was too much. And the reason that this works really well is because then for areas where you want kind of a tighter corner, you can get into there when you're just using the eraser. It's hard to get into some of those crevices, where with the selection tool, it makes it really, really easy. Now here's where it's going to become a little more fantastical, and I'm not relying so much on realism, is I'm going to select this color right here. Now, you may not be as obvious, but it's pulling from some of the gray in the background. So I'm going to actually layer that color in with the hair. I'm going to do it more around the outside of the hair. And the reason for this is it gives the impression of the hair recessing more into the background. So it gives more of, once again, contrast, and that feel as if this hair is receding back into space. And it creates more of a value just by adding your background color to the hair itself. Now, typically I use gray. I wouldn't go for a very oversaturated or crazy background color, but with a more neutral one, you can definitely play with those tones in the hair outline itself to create a sense of recession going on from the hair itself.
How far in do you usually go with that gray before you're just like, this is too far?
That's a good question. I typically don't know. So it'll be more of an experimental thing where, like, if I did this, I think it would be too far. But even here, I'm like, okay, it seems like the gray is pushing a little too far out. I'm going to grab this brown and push it back down. So a lot of it is, I guess, seeing it. And if it feels like it's too much, then it's probably too much. But if it feels like you didn't add enough, then you probably didn't add enough. So it's a lot of give and take with me when I'm working on it. But the other thing I like to do is I'm going to grab my smudge tool, and I'm just going to do a quick pass on the outline to give you guys an idea of why I'm doing this. Now, typically you can also use the liquify tool or the blend tool, but I'm trying to keep the background separate from the characters so that when I move them around, if I wanted to have a separate background, I don't have a weird gray mixed in. And if you guys don't know what I'm talking about, so like right now, if I hid the background layer, you can see how there's no gray from the background being mixed in with the smudge tool. But now if I grabbed my mixer tool and I did the same thing, so it gives kind of the same impression. I mean, I typically like the mixer tool better, but now if I hide the background layer, you can see how it picked up the gray background and it actually laid it in with the hair layer itself, which is something I don't want. So you can see the difference between that. But the smudge tool doesn't do that. So that's why I'm more using the smudge tool. And the reason I'm doing that is because creates an out of focus feel. And it's more of directing the eye. So I'm trying to direct the eye to the face itself. And the further around a subject matter that you get, you can let there be less of a focus to it so that the eye directs inward toward the point of interest that you're trying to create. So having the edge be a little more out of focus creates that impression. Do we have another question? I feel like I just rambled for like 10 minutes.
Could you also show how to do body hair? I don't mean dirty stuff. I mean like tiny hairs on the arm or the eyebrows.
Yeah. All right, so for the eyebrows, if you can't tell, I keep them more shapular. Let me see how I did, Christina. So the one thing I do like to add is some kind of impression that it's still hair. And with females, it's a little tougher because typically they tweeze the hair on the rim, so it's like a really clean cut line. But even with male characters, I might add, let me see if I did it on Chase. He has more bushy eyebrows. So like on the edges, I'll keep them a little more with the skin showing through. And even sometimes I like to have a cut where there's like a sliver of skin showing through just to give the impression that it's hair. And actually, I like that. I'm going to keep that. me go back to Tracy. So then with Tracy, I probably lay it in, and then near the edge, I'm just gonna like lightly brush it in, and then I'll grab my skin layer and brush it back toward it. So that's typically how I do eyebrows. Now, when it comes to arm hair and stuff, I used to do it where I was like, I need this to be as hyper realistic as possible, but now I don't do it as much. But let's say we wanted to give her, let's see here. For her, it'd be like very small. And actually, I don't even know if it would be this dark. You know what? This is kind of hard to see when the skin itself isn't fully rendered, but it would be like just a very light touch. And I would go in the direction that the hairs would actually be going. But that is a good question because with male characters, I think it's important that you are very attentive to where you're adding the hair. Because sometimes when I see male characters and their legs are just like super shiny, it almost is like, that's typically not what guys' legs look like. And just to add like a quick brush, even with like a texture brush going down the leg, to give it some more of a texture feel, because guys' legs are typically more hairy, and it creates a different value altogether. It's not like the same skin color. It's actually a little darker, depending on the hair color itself. I mean, if they're super blonde, then it might create more of a, actually even that would change the actual hue to be a little more golden tint. So that's how I would do more of the facial hair, or just body hair in general, I should say.
Oops, hold on. That was just a question that I wanted to read out, and I totally thought it was the last question that we asked. Hold on. Okay, Sydney asks, any advice on what to think about when painting hair in motion, like blowing in the wind or when the person is running? I know that hair doesn't always flow neatly in one direction. It goes all over the place, but it's hard to paint that convincingly.
Chuckle whenever I hear One Direction used not to describe the band. When the hair is kind of blowing in the wind, it's definitely even more shapular, because if you just draw, let me see if I can do this quickly. If you just draw like individual strands going and you just did that like over and over and over again, it just looked like a terrible mess. Now, mind you, sometimes hair when it's blowing in the wind does look like a terrible mess, but if you want it to be more like illustrative and pretty, I would typically think of it in different sections of waving. And don't be afraid to do this, which is, let me go. So imagine if the hair went in and it comes together at like a point and then it thickens back out. I think too often we feel the need to always have them never cross or be the outlines crossing each other. But it actually is more realistic when you think of it, almost more like a ribbon in a way, where yeah, they would be crossing, but not all of them would cross. So then have a few that cross and then a few that just go straight out. Then if you were looking for more of a beauty shot, then you look at the hair strands that you're doing as a whole, and then I would almost clump them together. Oops, I mean, it very much depends on the style you're going for too. But look at your reference that you're using. If you're not using reference, go use reference, because something that is so specific like this, it's so much easier when you're using reference. And see how the hair, it becomes like a giant shape, but you can see a lot of the background through it because the hair, it's thinner. It's not as thick as it is like what we're doing with Tracy right now, because the hair, the background can't show through as much because there's so much layering of the hair. But when it's blowing in the wind, it's almost like a sheet of hair. And you can definitely see through a lot of it. So it's, I guess, something to keep in mind when you're doing hair blowing in the wind.
I like this one. How do you approach afros? I can't get that crisp, thin hair, curly look right.
Man, you guys are asking for everything on this stream. I'm going to give Chase an afro really quick.
Yes.
Okay, so first thing, I'm going to erase some of the boy band look that we're going on here. And we are going to create a new layer. Now, the way that I like to create afros is I like to, if I was doing it in pencils, I'd be trying to create a rough outline first. Now it depends on how clean you want the afro to be too. Like if you're going for like Disco 70 where it's like almost a perfect sphere, that's a little different, and I guess we can do something more like that. But I like to have there to be some irregularities with the shaping itself to give it more of a realistic feel. Like this is actually hair. It's not like a wig or a costume wig. So I would first do the outline, and then I would fill it in. I already know how ridiculous this is going to look. And I'm letting the brush strokes be more circular. I'm moving in like small circles here. And then as I get close to the edge, I might let some of that background shine through, like what we were talking about with Tracy, where it gives the impression that it's receding backwards. And from here, you can take your barbershop skills and like trim it on the edge. Oops.
All I can think of is just the tank theme because he's like Spike.
Oh, oh yeah, it does look like Spike a little bit. And then from here, I'd grab some of that background color, lay it in back here, just to give more of a kind of more fantastical feel that I'm trying to work with for the stream here. Layer it upwards. Now grab this darker brown, and back downwards.
Danny Avedon from Ninja Sex Party and Game Grumps.
No idea what you're talking about.
It's like that huge fro, you know.
You should even throw like a. Hold on.
Was it? It's weird because whenever I always think of Eddie from SSX Tricky.
Oh, I like Eddie.
You know, and but like it's so cartoony, like round ball where it looks like you just put a ball on top of their head. But it's like that's not how afros actually work.
Oh, not at all. They're supposed to be more unkempt. So then from here, I'd probably then go in and do like the individual curls that come out of the afro. Because right now it still looks very ballish. So then from here, you can kind of play with the curls that an afro would bring on. So I guess typically that's how I would approach doing an afro. And then the sideburns like this wouldn't make sense, so I would have to get rid of them. And if he had an afro, there's a 30% chance he also might have chops. So, something like that. Yeah.
Where did you come up with 30%?
Do you know 70% of all percentages are made up on the spot?
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah. All right. So now let's get back to Tracy here. What am I going to do? What was the next step? Oh, I'm cleaning up the edge. And Joey, I think you were in the bathroom when I was talking about using the selection tool and how then you can use that to like select different parts of the hair and then switch back to the eraser and oops. And then cut in like that.
Yeah.
Do we have anyone that, or any question that we could answer without switching?
There was one about, oh, okay. Turquoise Punk asks, do you have any female characters that don't wear makeup or tweeze their eyebrows, etc.?
Yes. Let me see. I think Red is more bushed out with their eyebrows. I really like thick eyebrows. Let me see here. Hers are a little more unkempt. But the other female I have, her name's Grizzy. She's like a 65-year-old boisterous woman. So she's going to be a little more unkempt. All right, so now I'm going to do one more highlight shine. Now, mind you, I'm still not going to pure white because let me show you what that would look like. And mind you, this could work if done right, but it almost gives the impression of it being really shiny, especially compared to the rest of the style that I've been working with for this character, where it's such a weird contrast that it doesn't really fit with the style. For some styles, this almost fits perfectly because then the shine gives it that glisten that it kind of needed. But for here, since I'm working with a chalk brush and everything feels kind of pastel-y anyways, and the highlight color itself really isn't that much of a highlight, this is too much of a contrast. So then what you could do is then take your smudge tool. Oops. Let me close Slack really quick. And blend it in more. And from here, you could layer it out. But the reason I don't like using white is because then the area in between the blend almost creates like this weird gray. So instead, I'm going to use more of like a yellow shine. So I'm going to color pick that brown color, go on my color picker, and this is the color that I'm going to be using for the highlight. So I'm going to make a new layer, and if you really do not like the highlights that you're laying on, do it on a new layer, because then you can just delete the layer itself. And sometimes it takes a few tries and like experiment with it, because highlights can be tricky where it can look very overblown or too subtle really quickly. So even with this, if I made like a really big stroke, it almost doesn't fit with what we've created underneath. And we got to be very attentive to the foundation that we've created for the hair already. So in that way, we can almost add to that flow with the highlight. So we're trying to work with the foundation, not work against it. Do you have any other questions?
Yeah. Malcolm Ponder asks, how long did it take you guys to get comfortable working in color from the beginning and skip/think of the other steps in your head, such as the values, design, and line art and stuff?
To be honest, I don't think every artist should get to that point, because someone like me, I don't really particularly like working with line art, where someone like even Joe, he really enjoys working with line art. So I think it just depends on the style that you're going for, and really knowing yourself as an artist and your technique and how you want your final product to look. Because since I kind of want mine to feel more of a, I don't want to say chalky, but almost chalky appearance, and it doesn't have a solid line art, kind of like what you see here, then I shouldn't really be working with a step that might be more of a hindrance or something that would just be excess time that I shouldn't be wasting. But for Joe, doing something like this rendering might be kind of a waste of time, where for the look that he's going for, he wants it to be more crisp, more solid. But or you go first, then I'll add on to it.
I was going to say, I think in pertaining to art ability, like skipping steps, I think that just comes with, because the questions are,
that's what I was going to answer.
How long did it take you guys to get comfortable working in anything? I would say that's just repetition, but the only problem with that is that you can do repetition of something that's incorrect. So that's the problem, and that's where I guess being comfortable, if you start doing something that's like wrong, so like eye placement, say you drew an eye up too high and you always drew an eye too high, you're going to get comfortable doing it, but it's going to be incorrect. So I would say there's a mix up there where you have to be like, oh, well, I'm comfortable doing this. And then if you don't see the problem that it's in your, like, I don't know how to explain this. If you're comfortable, but it's incorrect, that's very difficult to see.
It's very,
but I guess that's
unsee, I think is what you mean.
Yeah, there you go. And I guess that's why it helps to have another person look at it, so that way you can be like, oh, okay, now I can step back and see what's incorrect about this.
Yep, 100% agree. So that's why when someone's giving you a feedback, and me and Joe are very much in agreement on this, just let them talk. Don't interrupt them. Don't get defensive. And if you need to write it down, but just let them talk. Because sometimes, even if not everything what they said might have been truthful or even constructive, if there's one thing that they are right about where you're like, okay, even though they were kind of harsh on me, like, was there any truth to what they were saying? And even if most of it really wasn't, if there were just a few that were correct, like your eye being too high, then you should take that in consideration and really look at it, really study it. Be like, now, why would he say that? Why would his visual eye tell him this was too high? And then, move it around, see if it looks better. And then most of the time, they're correct. Where if someone says something that they see something that's incorrect, it's probably because you can't see it because you've seen it for so long or you've worked it for so long, like Joe was saying. It's almost like habitual to do it that way. And then in your mind, it might be right, but is it right in accuracy or the way it should be? Probably not. Oh, now
Yeah, that's the problem.
Or sorry, you go.
I was gonna say that's the problem that I'm running into right now with hands. I'm studying with hands just a lot, and on my sketchbook, I post up hands, and I'm just like, these are awful, and they're really bad, and it's because I can't draw. I don't understand how fingers I guess, and I think it was Kat who's writing in my sketchbook about trying to attach the arm to the hand, and I'm going to try that tonight. I'm going to do a bunch of sketches where I attach the wrist to the hand to the finger, because I think what'll help is there's a point in the hand that goes straight through, and it usually looks nice when the pointer finger cuts through that part of your forearm and all the way up to your elbow. Like there's a really good gesture line there, and I think that'll help a lot with designing my hands from now on.
Yeah. It's always like taking critique with, it's like you bite your tongue almost. It's
and
like,
really utilize critique, you know?
Yeah, because if they're trying to help you, then it should be a constructive criticism.
Yeah.
So critiquing should never be trying to like put someone else down just to make yourself feel better. That's disgusting. A true critique is seeing something that maybe that artist is not seeing and trying to help them out.
Yeah.
All right, so now we're getting to the point of detailing. This is probably my favorite part of doing the hair, is when you have a really solid foundation, and then from this point forward, it's just a lot of like cleanup. Now, some might even say if this was true concept art, I could almost leave it like this. But since I want to push it a tad further, I'm gonna go in and zoom in to about this level and continue on. And in areas like this where it's super dark, don't be afraid to grab a lighter brown and maybe let some of that lighter color come back out and have it be a bit more out of the shadow. I forget which artist I followed a long time ago, but it kind of changed my whole view on how I even work, because I like to hide things in shadows. And his whole explanation for not doing that was you're afraid that you can't make it look correct with it not just going toward pure black. And it was very true. I used to hide things just in pure black. So now whenever I'm working, I try to, even like here, let's grab a fantastical color. Let's grab like a purple. Let's lay that in behind the hair. Something where you're not just relying on shadow colors, or not even, I shouldn't say shadow colors, where you're not relying on black to be your recessive color. So then for this, you can have more fun with it. But if you add purple here, you're definitely entering a more fantastical coloring technique. So you want to make sure that it's implemented in other areas than just this one pocket here. So I got to be now more mindful of the colors that I'm choosing. Maybe have a few more that are bouncing. So maybe some of the purple then, maybe not this purple. Let me grab a lighter one. Something like this purple. Have some of that be reflected back onto the skin itself.
Do you think that's a common thing of hiding things in shadows? Because I used to do that all the time, and I got yelled at that all throughout college.
Yes, I totally think this is a common thing.
Like a very, very common artist thing.
And I think it sucks when you first realize you do it. I don't know how you took it at first, but I was just like, no, that's not how it would work in real life. And then you'd look at photos and be like, oh, that is how it works in real life.
Right.
You're like, okay, well, I'm going to put my ego aside here and admit that, yeah, I was completely wrong, and let's try to fix it. And I think that goal is true for a lot of just becoming better in art, is you really do have to put your ego aside and be like, I don't know how to do this. Let me teach myself, or can you teach me? And if you can't, let me look it up on YouTube or whatever platform you use to teach yourself.
We have a ton of awesome questions in line or in queue. I'm gonna start with this one. It says, do you have any pictures of your previous hairstyles? Would be fun to see younger Tim and Joe?
Oh, like real life?
Yeah.
I'll I'll find one. How about that? We'll each share one.
I was gonna say my hairstyle's always kind of been similar. I've always worn a faux hawk since I was a baby.
Oh boy. Should I have two that I could show. I could either show Vampire Tim or Hippie Tim when it was really long.
I think the one picture of you in the living room is like, that to me is young Tim.
That's baby Tim.
Yeah. I used to have bangs. That was my hairstyle too. Like faux hawk and bangs.
I found one with me and Jake, or my little cousin. All right, so here was me when I thought long hair was really cool, and I was finally comfortable with curly hair, because my whole life I thought curly hair was a curse because it was just horrible to manage. And oh, you woke up and you're like, well, I can't go to school looking like this. I have to take a shower. So that was curly hair Tim. You know what? Hold on. I'm gonna find Vampire Tim. The only time I've really dyed my hair was last year. Let's see. All right, I only have a black and white version, but here is Vampire Tim. So this is when I had my white hair. And if you guys don't know how hard it is to get white hair, you have to dye it like 4 times, because not only do you have to bleach it, but because when you bleach it, it turns yellow. But then you have to use like a purple tint to kind of balance those yellow hues in the hair. So then it's this constant back and forth. So that was Vampire Tim.
This is a really good question. Jordan Nelson asks, what are your guys' top pet peeves?
Oh man. Number one world. Oh, what's yours? I think I know mine.
As far as when talking to somebody, when
I know what yours.
They sound like they're in pain, or when they constantly use the word like.
Yep.
That drives me bonkers.
I was like, for Joe, it's either gonna be like, or when someone talks prissy.
Yeah, that's pretty annoying. Where they just sound like they've been shot. They're like, oh, sorry, that's my phone. When they sound like when like everything's really tough, like they're just complaining. I hate that.
I have no pet peeves. I was thinking, I don't know, mine are like really weird, abstract ones. Yeah, no, you know what? I'm gonna keep those to myself.
What? Give me one. Give me one.
Let's do one that's a little easier. I guess discussing movies with someone that only watches mainstream movies and feeling like they're right. That could totally just be the elitism in me being like, yes, I understand you love Transformers, but let me give a more explanation of why that might not be the greatest movie ever made.
Tim's pet peeve is people who like Frozen.
No, because no. We're not even gonna get into this discussion.
I know.
If a movie entertains someone, I have no right to say otherwise or even interject with how I felt about the movie. I want movies to be the best that they can possibly be. And I feel like Disney, especially with Frozen, I think they slipped just a little, where I really liked Princess and the Frog, and I thought Tangled was good. And I liked Wreck-It Ralph. So I thought Frozen was just kind of a strange step back.
Lifetime Gamer asks, so I take it Joe loved the movie White Chicks. I love that movie. that is one of my favorite movies. We watched that all the time in college.
Wayland Brothers are pretty funny. I like all the scary movies. Well,
most of the scary movies. Terry Crews is the man. I don't know if you guys know this, but Terry Crews is awesome.
All right, cool.
Do you know who Terry Crews is?
Agree to disagree, you know?
He's
I know who he is.
Oh, okay. Lifetime Gamer also says, Tim, let it go.
Yeah, actually, when Frozen came out and I told people I didn't think it was that great, that was like the initial reaction every time. Tim, just come on, let it go, man.
Sheila asks, if you were a girl, what hairstyle would you want to have?
Bald.
Bald?
Mm-hmm. I'd be a rebel. No, I'm kidding. I'd probably have what Red has or what Christina has, where it's just really big and hippie-like.
Actually, I really like Meg's hair from Face Off.
Oh yeah,
her hairstyle is so cool. Like that, I know that's kind of like a cliche now, and like everyone's doing it, but it's still a really cool hairstyle.
I agree. And if you guys don't know who that is, it's with one side shaved off, and then the rest of it. So it'd be like Natalie Dormer. It was like that. That's
okay, time
20 minutes left. What?
Time for some serious questions.
All right, good. A little crazy there for a second.
Divine Keteroshi says, what do you think about taking mentorships from another artist like Adam Duff, Mike Lim, or other great artists? Do you think it's a good way to learn art?
Yeah, absolutely. I actually don't know how it couldn't be seen as a way to learn art. I think I mean, obviously it depends on how committed both parties are to it. But I feel like you would have to pick up something. Like you learn something from doing it, even if it's something you would consider more minor. I mean, that's something that you didn't know before.
Yeah, I guess if you're gonna take a mentorship from somebody, like expect to go in there like you want to learn how to draw like that artist.
Yes. Oh yeah. Good point.
Because they're gonna teach you how they go about their process and how they work. Even if it is kind of like a fundamental class, they're most likely going to teach you how they go about doing their process. But I mean, like color and light, those things are kind of obvious, but they're probably going to be showing you how they go through their process and how they see color and light. So be aware of that. And I mean, obviously, if you like that artist, then you're going to probably want to have them as a mentor, and you're going to take things from them and put it into your own artwork as well.
All right, really quick before we do another question.
Okay.
I think one of the biggest things I see when people do hair, let me make a new layer, is they want to outline it first and then color it in. But I want you guys to try testing yourself where, let me see if I can find a good area where this would be. So let's say down here. All right. So rather than first like drawing the outline of the hair and then filling it in, try just like layering it in yourself. Then have that strand kind of come to life slowly rather than have it being more forced and it has to fit this outline that you created. Have it go down. Because usually when I draw like what's going on right here, none of that was outlined for me. I'm just kind of grabbing the area around it. Actually, I really don't like that strand there. Let's say we wanted to have a strand that was more loose here. Just draw it in and then grab a lighter color and fill it over. And kind of repeating that process all throughout the hair will eventually give you something that looks like this. But you can see how it was very obvious, like this section was added after I did the area underneath. So the hair that's gonna be like the very top showing, you almost wanna do last. So then let's say like this area up here, if I wanted to do more hair work here or detail it a bit more, it helps having this more solid foundation so that if I wanted to have some of those hairs crossing over or even doing an individual strand, I even might change my shape dynamics. There would be something like this. I could do that. But you gotta remember, the more individual strands that you add, the more complicated you make your image. So be very aware of how much of those small individual strands you're adding. And I would only put them in areas that really want to highlight the areas of the hair. rather than it being everywhere. I'm done.
Okay, Ironat says, a bunch of pro-level artists say that you shouldn't use custom brushes until you know your stuff. But with hair, for example, it's so much easier to use custom brushes. When do you know when to graduate from the basic ones?
You know what's funny is I typically only use basic brushes nowadays. I understand what you mean, and I think custom brushes can make things more efficient, especially when you're working more with like a concept art mindset. Like the hairbrush that I created, and that's even in the packet where it's more strandy, it's more for like a hyper realistic look, and it's like drawing individual strands. And yeah, maybe I could do like a detail pass on top, but for me, I feel like I never graduated from the basic brushes. I think I had to master the basic brushes so that I could use custom brushes if I wanted to be more efficient in different areas. But for the most part, when I'm painting, I try to use only the basic brushes because you really only need the basic brushes. It's kind of like if you think of traditional painters and the way they work, they're only using, I mean, maybe they're using different size paintbrushes, but for the most part, they're using the same type of tool. Where let's say I added, let's say, if I added a chain brush, oops, let me get the angle jitter on. So like if I added a chain brush around her neck, if that was her necklace for whatever reason, I don't know what that represents. Let's say I added that, it becomes very obvious and like glaringly distracting that that was a brush. That wasn't something that I painted with the chalk brush because of the way that's detailed and how crisp it is. So if I'm primarily using a chalk brush, if I'm using custom brushes, it has to fit that same look. Because if I'm using a custom brush that kind of is in complete contrast to the look that we've created, then it becomes very much it's not even a blend in anymore. It just becomes a distraction. So you're gonna be very careful on how you go about using custom brushes, but never feel like you have to graduate from them. If anything, I would just focus on mastering them.
You kind of just answered this one. It says, what are your thoughts on hair brushes? Like the kind of brush that are made of just a spray of dots. I think they make the hair look really stringy.
Yeah, I agree. It works in some cases. Like that's why there's no like one easy answer to some of these brush questions, because a lot of the times it comes down to the artist and the intention of how they're going to use the brush itself. Oh, really quick. Okay. Something else I wanted to draw in. Now she has her hand laid up out here, but we're going to imagine as if that hand might not be there. So imagine if some of the hair kind of weighted on the shoulder itself. Let's say it was looming over, and then it went back, it receded back into the behind her back. The reason I want to say this is because all the hair isn't just in the front or behind. A lot of the time, some of the hair will clump on the side. I don't know why I don't really like how I work that. Let me push it a little further out maybe. Hold on, let me actually draw in the shoulder. So if this was her shoulder, rather than this just being kind of empty and devoid of any hair, I would rather have maybe even just one or two where it just kind of shows that this hair isn't in the front or the back. It's just kind of like on the side, and then it might even linger forward to the front. Something that implies that the hair isn't just, oh wow, that looks way too sharp. But something that implies that it's real hair. And I think that's a really easy way to do it. Actually, maybe I don't mind that as much as I thought I did. And you can see that really heavily with Christina on her shoulder here, because I could have just had it gone straight down to imply that, yeah, she has straight hair, or not straight hair, but wavy hair, and it's just pushed back behind. but I wanted to show that some of it hangs on the shoulder. Now it shouldn't apply in every single case, but just something to think about while you're adding your own hair to your characters.
Jess Hop asks, I'm still in high school and I have been using Photoshop and Wacom Pad for almost a year now. But should I be practicing with traditional art while I'm still young and learning?
Yes. I think there's so much that can carry over from traditional to digital, and even vice versa, that it's good to work on both at all times. I think the one thing you always hear digital artists talk about, or at least when I hear them talk about, is always have at least a sketchbook. Even if it's something that you carry around with you from place to place, and maybe even like just scribble in it. Just the act of even doing that is so beneficial, and it will help you in the long run. And it's one of those where you'll realize it in a few years from now. It's something where I could tell you how helpful it is, but it's something you need to realize and feel for yourself. Man, I'm having a see, and this gets to the point where I'm just having fun at this point. Like I love having this kind of a foundation because then my mind, I can almost listen to music, I can watch TV in the background or watch a movie because I'm on autopilot at this point. I created a nice foundation, and this is where art becomes fun, for me at least. And I like to tell artists this because art should never feel like a chore from start to finish. There should be areas where you just genuinely enjoy doing it. And for me, it's rendering. So I got to a point where now I can have fun, and yeah, it might be a little slower, but if I have no deadline or if this is more of a personal project, I can take my time and I can enjoy the process because I enjoy creating art. So this is when art becomes more of a fun thing. But you have to put in the time and the work toward the areas that might not be so fun for you. But there's so much more gratification when you get the hard stuff done first, and then you can work on the areas that you do have fun in. All right, we have like 10 minutes left. Should I do my looking through the questions here? Or is there one more good one that you have?
There's one more good one.
All right, let's hear it.
It says, often when I draw, I don't have access to a computer, so I can't look at reference. How can I get any better at drawing people?
Take your own reference. And you might not have been here on the stream where I shared a picture of myself where I take pictures of myself in different poses for the characters that I'm drawing all the time. And I don't think it's something that you should be ashamed of. If anything, it's like you are a free resource. And if you really want to take, like if you have a roommate or even a sibling, just ask them to like hold a sword in a position that you want or whatever the picture you're trying to create, and then take a picture. And it could be on your phone, whatever. Most of my pictures I take on my phone, and I don't even use a camera, and I just send myself the picture. So it doesn't have to be like a professional Nikon, Canon camera. It could be just a simple phone picture. And when you're looking at the reference, really, really analyze it. Don't just look at the surface value of, oh, that's an arm. Like really look at, oh, that's probably how these muscles work together underneath. You can see like some stretching of the muscles or the tendons, or if you turn it, you might have some values that you didn't even realize implied the underlying anatomy structure, but then you're like, oh, I can totally see that now with the reference. But the other thing is, there's a lot of art books out there, and I know that if money can be tight, art books can be definitely a little expensive, but if you go to a local bookstore, they'll definitely let you look through them. And even if you want, I don't know if this is illegal or not, but like just taking a few photos of the book of it itself. I know, admittedly, I've done that with Imagine FX, where I've gone to the library or the bookstore, and sometimes if I don't feel like the whole magazine was solid as a whole, I'll just take like a few pictures of the artist that I want to look up when I get home, or if there's a really awesome picture that I want to remember, I'll take a snap of it really quick.
Definitely utilize your friends and family, because they're great. Like if you could just sit down and everyone's just like watching TV, or even at dinner. I know you're not supposed to have your drawing pad at dinner table, but like use what you have around you, and especially what Tim said, use yourself. I mean, if you don't have anybody around you at the time, but I think that's super important to realize that you have so much around you that you can just use as art and inspiration to study from.
Yep. Totally agree. All right, let me look at the questions here and we'll kind of wrap up the stream for today. I like some of these top ones. You've already made poor Tracy bald, cut her hair. Oops. I'm giving her a beard. I think it's time for chest and belly hair. And I think I'm going to say this really quick. When it comes to those kind of things, and even, I'm going to say it, even when drawing nipples, I don't think you should be afraid to do it. Particularly with your male characters, when you do it on a female, there's definitely more of a gray area of if you can post it or do you have to add a mature filter. We'll kind of see how that plays out in the next few years. But when you're doing it, don't be afraid to do it. It's kind of like when you put hands in pockets, it's because you're afraid to draw them. So don't be afraid. And if you really want to add chest or belly hair on your character, go for it. I don't think people will like chastise you for doing that.
You're a horrible artist because you went for realism.
Like, ew. Oh, I would love to do a piece underwater. That'd be kind of cool. Oh, someone's asking, can you please explain how to draw without any sketch, but only the lines? I've tried it many times, but it just won't look good. I mean, like draw the hair on top of someone's head without drawing a bald head first and things like that. So if you look down here, when I do that, I usually work very fast. I'll work with like the colors that I know I want to typically work with. Now, mind you, those could change, but I'm just trying to block it out. And you hear a lot of artists talk about that when they don't use line art. They block it out and think of it as a silhouette and as different shapes as you're working through it. And I think that should help you a little bit more if you're trying to do it without any lines. Someone's asking when the next workshop will be that I run at CG Cookie with Joe, and that will probably happen next January. I'm taking the rest of the year to focus on the courses that are available on CG Cookie. I'm hoping to do the other half of the color course, the intro courses, which will be on more on like the mindset of an artist. So I'll have even a tutorial on just Timisms, so things that I always say and I really believe in, of like never make excuses. And I hate, or I shouldn't say hate, but I dislike when I hear people say they don't have time, because in my opinion, that just means they don't manage their time efficiently. So those are what I'll be working on the next few months. And then in January, we'll probably do another workshop. There are some funny questions on here. How much anatomy do you need to know before drawing gestures? It never stops. You always want to be continuing learning anatomy. I feel like I was even telling Joe earlier in the summer, I really want to take a life drawing course again, just because there's so much that you can learn every time. And I feel like anatomy is something that is a lifelong journey to really understand. So I do agree that there is a point where you become at least sufficient with the fundamental understanding, and then pushing it in where you can put it in different poses and it still feels accurate. And I say accurate very lightly, but that's something that I think you should always strive to improve upon. Oh, someone said they watched nearly every stream but never made it to a live one. So excited. Well, it's awesome. Glad to hear that, H. Allen. Yes, Francis says, or friend, I think it's Francis, says, I think one of you or someone else said to leave a drawing and come back to it later and you'll see flaws much easier. I totally agree. Like even on Tracy right now, I'm sure if I got up, well, actually after the stream's over, I'm going to go to Subway. When I come back, I'm sure I'll see something where I'm like, oh, you know what? Like this hair looks a little too romanticized, where her character doesn't really fit. I should make it feel a bit more dirty. And then I'll see it because I came back from it with a fresh mind, a fresh pair of eyes. Joe, do you say potato or potato? Or potato?
I can't think about it. Hold on. Idaho potatoes.
You what?
Idaho potatoes.
Potato. Yes, potato. Okay, here's one from Niall Burton. I have a couple of ideas I really like for pieces, but I don't want to work on them now as I feel like I could not do them justice. Any ideas? That's something I'm going through right now. I have a chase illustration that I put on the back burner. And even though that's seen primarily as a negative thing, I think sometimes you do have to understand that maybe you bit off more than you could chew with a piece. And rather than just hash out something that you're not proud of, put it on the back burner, come back to it at a later time where you're not as aggravated with it or feel you're struggling with it as much. Like right now, I feel like I've learned so much about hair and the way that I'm doing lighting that when I go back to the old piece, I can implement the new things that I'm learning, those new techniques. So that's a very fine line though, because you don't want to constantly be doing that with your pieces where you never feel like you'll do anything justice, because then you're just seeing yourself as a negative artist, and that's not good either. You should always feel confident of like, I can do this, and if I don't feel like I can do it right now, I'm going to teach myself how to do it, whether that's looking online. I'm going to use whatever resource I can to teach myself. Tim, your hairstyle doesn't match your kind of personality. I'm well aware. Let's see here. Tijal says, how do you give hair an ombre effect? Here at the Von House, we like to call it a gradient, not an ombre. We joke about that because one of our roommates hates the word ombre. But when you're talking about gradients, the hair itself, when you're going from light to dark, so let me grab a color that's more pronounced. So like here to here on this strand right here, or right here. You can see how it starts dark, and then it's like medium midtones, and then it's the highlight, then the midtones, and then dark again. And if you think about it, there's a gradient going up and a gradient going down. And that's the best way to think of a gradient in hair. But if you want to do the hair as a collective, you got to be very careful. But usually, especially with girls, and especially if they have long, darker hair, a lot of the times they get it where they have that ombre effect, where it's lighter on the bottom, like the tips are more light, and then the top of the head will be slightly darker. And that's just something to think about while you're doing the hair itself. And even if you wanted, let's see if I can create a multiply layer. And so like, let's say I wanted her hair to be much darker on the top, and then as it gets down, do this really quick. Let me create another new layer. Let's do an overlay to really showcase it. It has more of this lighter feel. Actually, that looks way too orange. Let me, something like that. And obviously this is very pronounced, but that would be like one way of giving it more of an ombre effect. Now let me take off those layers and show you the difference. So you can see how it does create an effect, but you can see how it changes the whole mood of the character. So be very specific, or be at least very aware that when you're doing it, it's going to change the overall look of the character. Let's see here, one more. Oh man, Jordan Nelson remembered. They say, hey Tim, how's that 10-foot drawing coming? Oh, it's coming very well. I haven't started it, but it's all finished in my head. Oh man, here's a good one to end on that I'm not going to answer. What do you think about modern art? No, I'll answer this. I think when it comes to art, I think there needs to be two aspects of it that will make a piece great. The first one has to be the idea. And I think modern art nowadays focuses too much on the idea, where yeah, it can bring a discussion to the table, or it might make you guys, or like when you leave, if you go with a group of friends, it opens a discussion that you might not have had before. And I think good art should do that. I think it should make you think about something maybe you haven't thought about before. But to make it great art, I think you need the other aspect, which is the technical aspect. So if you can have a merging, and if you guys don't know what technical it's like the understanding of color and lighting and values, and then implementing it into the work itself. So then if you can mesh those two together where it's a good idea that sparks conversation and it has a great technical aspect to it, I think that's what modern art should be. But I think nowadays it focuses on the shock factor and something that is so repulsive or something that is just clearly offensive that sparks conversation. But I feel like it doesn't really have a technicality to it. It really is just of shock factor. So I guess that's my thoughts on modern art. All right, I think that's all we got for today. Go ahead and do the send off. Thank you guys so much for coming to this live stream. We do these every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Central Time, and it's -5 GMT if you're outside of the States. Next week will be our first critique live stream. So Joe's going to create a community post in the next hour or two. And if you want to see your work being critiqued on, put it on that post itself. And we're probably going to select, I want to say 3 to 6, just so that we can give each an adequate amount of time. But if you want to be seen, I would do it either today or tomorrow, just because then Joe and I can take the ones that we select and do like a paint over or discuss between me and him on what we want to say or things that we want to give feedback on. So that's something you should look forward to. Next Thursday, we're going to be announcing the Halloween contest as we're going to start our October month. So we're going to have fun with Halloween, and those live streams should be pretty spooky, I guess, pretty fun. And I think with CG Cookie, what's coming out right now, I don't know where my whiteboard is, if you can see it. I don't know where it is. And I'm working on the game asset course. I have the first 2 recorded. I have 2 more to go. But I'm going to give you, you know what, maybe I can give you a sneak peek. I think that would be okay. I'm kind of excited to show this. Oh yeah, let's throw it on the Photoshop layer here. All right, so if you see this little bomber guy here, he is part of the project that we're working on right now, or at least the game asset course that we're working on, and this is an example of a style that we're trying to achieve. So this was very fun to paint, and I'm looking forward to releasing that course, and it will probably be out before Christmas. That's the goal as of right now. So if this is something that interests you, where you want to see something go from concept art to modeled in 3D to seeing it move and, or I guess animate, and then see it move and move around. I don't know what other word I'm looking for. Maybe jump. I don't know. In a game design software, I'm pretty sure it'll be Unity. So if you're familiar with Unity, it's a man. I am like at a loss of words right now. I don't want to say it's a game platform, and then you can see the character that we drew up run around. But for the first one, we're going to do a game asset. So I think the first one will be a boulder with foliage that's on it that can move and like sway in the game itself. So you get to see that. And I think that's all the big announcements we have, unless Joe, you can think of any.
I was going to say thank you to everybody. This past weekend, I hit over 1,000 views on my sketchbook, and that's really awesome. And I'm most likely going to be doing a thank you sketch for that in the next night or two. I just want to thank everybody for doing that. I think that's really awesome. I know there's another person who hit over 1,000 as well. I believe that was Cats. I really, really appreciate everybody going on there and giving good critique feedback, and the people that post every day. I really am enjoying it, and I really appreciate everybody, coming together as a community and building that up. So just thank you guys. And if you don't have one, go make one on the community, and there will be a link in the reference to the sketchbook page. So thanks.
Yep, that's all I got. All right, I'm gonna head to Subway. Thank you guys for coming to this live stream. Hopefully we'll see you next week.
Bye.